Hi and welcome to another Watch Geek video. Today we're gonna be doing something called the Lume Wars, where we compare lume of different watches. The reason I decided to do this video is because I realized I have some very interesting watches on loan for reviews. Also, when I'm doing reviews of a single watch and I record a lume shot of a single watch, the camera adapts to the brightness level of that single watch, making it look great. However, when you place all these watches together in a single shot, the camera has to take a middle ground, showing clearly the differences in brightness between different models. Now, before we move on with the actual lume shot, there are a couple of disclaimers. The first one is that camera does have its limitations. It's not as sensitive as a human eye. So even the worst watch in this comparison is actually visible all night long when you wake up in the morning with your eyes accustomed to darkness. Now, the second disclaimer is that we can actually use this limitation to our advantage. With the camera set up the way I did it, within 10 minutes of this video, so we don't have to record all night, but a 10-minute video is gonna simulate more than one night of complete darkness. But like I said, even the worst watch in this video is actually visible with your naked eyes when you wake up in the middle of the night. The only difference is that those that are very bright are easily visible, while these worst ones, you will have to squint your eyes and bring them closer to your face. When you take a look at this watch box and the watches inside, you might think it's a random selection of watches and a random grouping of watches. However, that is not the case, because if you look closely, you will see that in the left top corner, we have two watches with sand-colored or vintage-inspired lume. The Ginault Ocean Rover to the left, and next to it, the Spinnaker Bradner. Now, the Bradner comes with a new, improved formula for the vintage-colored lume, and Ginault claims that their vintage-colored lume is as bright as the C3. And if you know watchmaking, C3 is considered one of the best lumes in the business. Now, to test both their claims and to actually compare the two to see which one of these has a better vintage colored lume, because again, if you know watches, these yellow colored lumes are pretty bad compared to whites and green colored ones, we have the Seiko down in the middle, the SNK 809 with aftermarket hands that have the C3 lume. So not only are we going to compare the Ginault to the Spinnaker, but we're also going to test the claims of the Ginault that their lume glows as bright as the C3. And not only that, but as you can see, the Seiko and Ginault have exactly the same hands, shape, and size. So we're really going to see which lume is better. If we look at the lower left corner, we have the two dressy or elegant dressy casual watches, if we can call them like that. We have the Rolex Oyster Perpetual 36 and my Seiko SNX 111. Both these watches have almost exactly the same amount of lume to them, with Rolex having slightly more lume to the hour markers, while Seiko has slightly more lume on the hands themselves. These watches are not expected to perform flawlessly, but it's nice to see. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how they compare to each other. And to the top right corner, we have the Seiko Monster, a watch that has been the benchmark of what a great lume should look like for the last 15 or 20 years. Next to it, we have the Omega Seamaster Professional. The reason why this watch is next to a Monster is because when I was recording the review of this Omega, it had an amazing lume. It's actually the strongest lume I've ever experienced other than Seiko. So I want to see if that Omega has what it takes to be on par or even better than the Monster. So in this video, we're not just gonna see which ones of these are the strongest, because it's pretty clear the Omega and Monster are gonna be fighting for that title, but I want to compare these different groups of watches. Now, the Speedmaster is here because I'm actually surprised at how good the lume is, despite having very thin strips of lume. And we have the Amphibia because it's a legendary watch among watch lovers, and this is actually one of the newer models, so it has a slightly improved lume formula, because the really old ones are notorious for having very bad lume. So now we're just gonna see how this new one compares to the rest of the lineup here. So without further ado, let's move on to the lume shot itself. As you can see, even after a couple of seconds or minutes, you can see the differences between different watches. And when I say different watches, I mean the watches within the same group. So Ginault is definitely better than Spinnaker. If we look at the lower left, Rolex is pretty good, but Seiko is slightly taking the upper hand. And when it comes to the champions to the right, they're pretty neck to neck, and as expected, they're the brightest of the bunch. The Speedmaster and the SNK 809 are holding up pretty well. Halfway through the video, we can see that Spinnaker has pretty much disappeared, showing once again that vintage colored lume is the worst kind of lume that you can get. However, Ginault is proving that you can get vintage colored lume that's still strong and bright even after some time. However, their claims that it's as bright as the C3 are not really correct. It is very bright for vintage colored lume, but C3 is just slightly brighter, which is to be expected as, like I said, C3 is considered one of the best lumes in the business. When it comes to Rolex versus Seiko, Rolex is slightly fading away, and the only thing keeping it in the game is the amount of lume it has on the hour markers. Now the Speedmaster surprisingly is very good again, even though it has very thin strips of lume, and the Amphibia is almost as bad as Spinnaker, with only the hour hand and the seconds hand being visible, while everything else pretty much disappearing. The two champions, the Omega and Monster, are still visible pretty brightly, and in real life, they still glow like torches. As we move to the end of the video, we can see that the Speedmaster has disappeared, which is to be expected with the low amount of lume it has. The Spinnaker is long gone, and also Rolex has disappeared, together with the Amphibia. Now Ginault is barely visible, but it's pretty bad, and we can see that the C3 is still glowing much brighter than it. When it comes to the two champions, the Omega and Monster, in real life they're still very visible, and we can see they're pretty neck to neck. Now if I had to decide which one of the two is better, I really couldn't, because even in real life they still appear pretty much the same. However, the watch that surprised me the most has to be the Seiko SNX 111. The watch with probably the least amount of lume of all the ones here, except for the Speedmaster, is still pretty visible, especially in real life. In real life, this is still very bright. And I really wasn't aware it's that good compared to others. All I know is that when I wear it, I can always read the time easily, no matter what time of the night it is. And now this video, I mean compared to other videos, to other watches in this video, I can really see why that is, because the lume on it is very good. Well guys, that's it when it comes to this video, so thank you for watching. I really do hope you enjoyed watching this as much as I enjoyed filming it. If you have, please like and subscribe, and until the next video, bye.